have been incidences of people getting buried alive in the past. The conviction that a living human being will survive after getting buried alive is very low. For example, Octavia Hatcher's son passed away in 1891. This devastation caused her to fall into severe depression. Shortly after, she became gravely ill with an unknown disease and fell into a deep coma. After some months, Octavia's doctors could no longer find a pulse and pronounced her dead from mysterious causes. Octavia was immediately buried. Just a week after her burial, the other residents of that town began to fall ill and had symptoms similar to Octavia's. They fell into comas also, but strangely, woke up after a while. Seeing as this was happening, Octavia's husband began to panic since the thought of burying his beloved wife alive had crossed his mind. Rushing to the cemetery, he and his family exhumed Octavia's body and were shocked at what they found. They found the inner linings of the coffin torn with scratch marks and Octavia's body with broken and bloodied fingernails. It became obvious that she woke up from the coma but could not find her way out. She died a horrendous death from suffocation. Even at that, a small proportion managed to return to the land of the living, like in 1915, where Essie Dunbar suffered a fatal seizure. Shortly after she was declared dead, the doctors placed her body in a coffin and arranged for her funeral to be held the following day, so that his sister, who lived outside of town, could still be able to pay her last respects. Unfortunately, Essie's sister was unable to get to the funeral on time. She came only to see the last clump of soil being thrown onto the grave. That didn't sit well with Essie's sister, as she wanted to see Essie one last time before she was buried. She requested that Essie's body be exhumed. Shockingly, as soon as the lid of the coffin was lifted, Essie sat up with a bright smile. Essie lived for another 47 years after that near-death experience. Another buried alive incident happened to Angelo Hayes in 1937. Angelo, who was 19 years at that time, went out for a ride on his motorcycle. He bashed his bike and rammed his head on a brick wall. By the time the paramedics arrived, Angelo's head was disfigured grotesquely, and he had no heartbeat. He looked so horrendous that his family was not allowed to see him. He was pronounced dead immediately and buried after 3 days. One insurance company in Bordeaux became doubtful because Angelo's father took out a life insurance for 200,000 francs for Angelo not long after he died. They hired someone to carry out investigations on Angelo. The investigator had Angelo's body dug out 2 days after the funeral, and to their surprise, Angelo's body was still very warm. It was said that Angelo was able to survive the hit because his body went into a deep coma. Astonishingly, Angelo was able to fully recover from the incident. In the past, and even to date, people have been very worried about unintentional funerals that they started making safety chests with windows, bells, and breathing tubes. If you're alive and buried 6 feet below ground, there are a few things you may want to know. How long does it take to suffocate to death? Are you likely to get help from outside? Can you dig your way out? Here are just a few tips that may come in handy if you ever get buried alive. The first thing is for you to stay calm and conserve your oxygen supply. Calm down. Yes, you're in a rather terrible position, and it's probably safe to assume you're about to embark on a long and excruciating journey to the afterlife. That is enough reason for a panic attack, isn't it? When buried in a typical coffin, you probably have enough air to survive for up to an hour or two. The greatest menace to your survival is oxygen starvation, so focus on preserving your air supply. Depending on where you are buried, you only have a few hours before your fate is finalized. It is very normal to panic in this kind of debilitating situation. Rapid and anxious breathing will deplete your precious oxygen supply. You'll quickly run out of oxygen supply. Instead, inhale deeply, then hold the pressure for as long as possible before exhaling. Do not inhale and swallow, because it will lead to hyperventilation. It has been suggested that one of the best ways to stabilize your breathing is through meditation techniques. So focus on calming your breathing. Acknowledge the situation happening to you at that point. Push through it, and focus on confronting what's happening to you. Then, pull yourself together, and then design your plan. You'll never get anywhere if you're scared and panicky. Being in a coffin underground is probably the darkest place you have ever been. But do not be tempted to spark a match or lighter if you have one on you. Combustion quickly depletes your available oxygen and leaves you gasping for breath faster than you can imagine. It is advisable to use a flashlight if you have one. Do not scream. Yelling causes panic, which increases your heart rate and causes rapid breathing that quickly depletes your air supply. Science estimates that a healthy adult has about 5.5 hours of air to breathe underground. So you have a couple of hours to come up with a plan to get yourself out of that situation. The next tip is to analyze your situation and surroundings. As soon as you become calm and your mind becomes clear, look around to see if you have been buried with anything that might be useful. Since coffins are pretty much small, it should be easy to search around. If for any far-fetched reason you're buried with your phone and you can get a signal on it, try calling for help. Even if you cannot get a signal, close by phone towers pick up emergency number signals at times, so keep calling 911 or 112. Search your pockets, shoes, and anything you can lay your hands on. Check if you can uncover any sharp objects around you, such as nails or a pocket knife. Even if it is a belt you find, the metal loop can be helpful as a tool. They come in handy when you need to open the lid or cut off the rope that a villain has tied you up with. The most fragile part of a box is usually the middle, so you can also try banging on the lid to attract attention from above, but shouting is not necessary. Due to all the sound insulation by the soil, no one can hear you. The next tip is to analyze the quality of the material of the coffin before proceeding with anything. A cheap wooden box or recycled cardboard box will be fairly lightweight, so it's relatively easy to break through it. If it is made of metal or strong wood, it will be impossible to penetrate it. In this scenario, your only way out is to call out for help. Use any item that you've been able to locate to knock on the lid, be it a ring, shoe, belt, pen, or even your wristwatch. Repeat the emergency call until someone hears you. The next tip is to create a makeshift mask. After you have accessed the coffin and you are sure the lid is breakable, you need to create a makeshift mask before you begin climbing your way out. This mask is to protect you from suffocating on loose soil that may fall on your face. Your shirt can serve as this makeshift mask. I know it will require a bit of maneuvering to take your shirt off in such a small space. The shirt should only have a large opening in the neck, like a pocket. This makeshift mask protects you during your ascent to the surface. This layer of cloth will help you breathe without inhaling dirt or loose soil that can suffocate you. The next tip is for you to get ready to break out. It's finally showtime. With all the strength that you can muster, begin to kick the lid of the coffin with your hands and feet in order to break it open. And as the soil begins to rush in, work quickly and calmly to push this loose soil to your sides, towards your feet, and underneath it. Make sure your breathing is slow and consistent. As you do this, move your body into a sitting position and allow the loose soil to fill up the space you previously occupied. Keep pushing the soil backwards till you can stand up on your feet. And once you can clear the soil above you, climb out of the grave. Mind you, this tip will only work if the soil is still dry and loosely packed. If you are trying to escape during or after a rainstorm, it is also almost impossible to dig your way because the soil will be heavier than snow. Not to worry, the probability of you getting buried alive is very low. These tips are there to guide you if you ever find yourself buried underground in a coffin. And that brings us to the end of this video. Let us know in the comments section if you like this video and want to see more content like this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get notified when we post a new video.